Super Bowl winning coach, NFL Network analyst. NFL Game Day First will be on Sunday morning, every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. His weekly column at NFL.com is Under the Headset. It's Brian Billick back on the Rich Eisen Show. Coach, wow, huh? Right?
Yeah, in fairness and full disclosure, I didn't make it last night. I thought it was over. I had to get up this morning and replay it on my Game Pass because when I got up and I saw the score, I go, I don't believe this.
Right.
And had to replay it. It was incredible.
So where do we start? Let's start with the face mask. You think that was a face mask penalty, Coach?
You know what? If you got to break, and this has been my stance on this all along, if you got to break it down almost frame by frame, then you got to go with the call on the field. Technically, was probably not. And if I'm in Detroit right now, I'm kind of wondering if we're just cursed. But you can see it in real time. It looked like he had full grasp of the face. You can see why the official made the call.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his thumb got in there, and it definitely hit one part of the face mask and moved it. He didn't grab it, control it, yank it. Yeah. What he did do was yank him down by the shoulder. But what's he doing at his head anyway? Right? I mean, Rodgers got nowhere to go. He's got nowhere to go.
We were doing the Cal Stanford thing all over again, so it's like anything that wide open, it's hard to. You're right. It was not needed, but in the fog of war,
Sure.
And I'm looking at it on my computer right now, watching the look of Mike McCarthy and watching Jim Caldwell. Looks like he'd been gut shot. I mean, you put all that time and energy, and Detroit's been playing so well, and then a play like that just can't happen on so many levels.
Well, is it fair, Coach, to say that Jim Caldwell is now going to lose his job based on the way this all went down? When had it just a simple Hail Mary, normally 99.9% of the time is going to get knocked down, is properly defensed, and now he's won 4 in a row. But now this is going to be something that could be a final nail in a coaching coffin. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, if they're predisposed, that's exactly what they'll say. If not, it's, well, how do you hold this accountable? It's like Jason Garrett. How do you hold Jason Garrett accountable for what's going on? But at the end of the day, if an owner decides to make a change, that they'll lap that on there. So it's in and of itself, will it make a difference? No. Will you throw that on the corpse, so to speak? Sure, after it's all dead and done. And if you choose to, you can make the case that, you're up 17-20, nothing. I mean, you, whether it's defense, whether it's the decisions you made, you put yourself, how about you defend the Hail Mary?
The defense of it.
There's a million ways you can spin it. Depends on what your predisposition is for the Detroit Lions and Jim Caldwell.
Well, Coach, Jim Caldwell said last night that they were trying to play for a lateral again, or play half of it in between. I mean, how could that be possible? How could that be possible?
The both of them are low odds, and they had bodies there. And Green Bay, they execute. You have a jumper, you have a guy in behind, you have a guy in front. That's the way you coach it. It's the way everybody coaches it. Everybody does the same thing. The last thing you do on Friday is you kind of stage up the Hail Mary and remind everybody, here's what we do, and you're here, and you're there, and this is how you align. And how I can't, I'm thinking back, I don't know that I've ever gotten a Hail Mary in all the time I'm coaching, college, pro. So obviously the odds are not in your favor.
So would you put, say, your tallest wide receiver out there in defense? Did you used to do that when you defended?
Yeah. In fact, we've done that. When we had Randy Moss, great jumper. It's kind of like your tallest and best leaper when they're trying a 60-yard field goal, with the idea that you might get up and actually tip it down. And there's times we put, I can remember putting Randy Moss back there just because he was such a great leaper and had such great hands.
Yeah, back when you were the OC at Minnesota. So the question is where was Calvin Johnson? Why does he have maybe because of his ankle?
We can second guess that a million days to Sunday, and you shoulda, woulda, coulda, and how did they, I flash back to the Arizona State SC game last year, where it's like how can it happen? Well, it happens. Not much of an answer, and it's not going to save you one way or the other if ownership's predisposed. But it's one of those you really can't calculate.
Brian Billick joining me here, NFL Game Day First, 7 a.m., Under the Headset, NFL.com, at Coach Billick on Twitter, on the Rich Eisen Show. So let's talk about what it masks, okay?
Yeah.
Because Green Bay's offense last night, part of the reason why you shut that thing off to get some shut-eye is it was shut down. I mean, that was a brutal offensive performance because of a makeshift offensive line. Eddie Lacy let's put it this way: a guy they signed off the practice squad, John Crockett from North Dakota State. Marshall Falk thought Zach Crockett was back in the league as we're sitting there watching the game. They're handing him the ball in crucial moments of the fourth quarter. Are the Packers' offensive woes fixable in your mind?
Biggest concern I have is it's in a cascading set of events. Their receiving core, which has always been a strength. You know, you look at Green Bay, no one builds from within more than Green Bay, and particularly at the receiving core, and that has always been a strength. They've got diversity. I wrote a piece on Wednesday for NFL.com talking about in its ideal state, I want my five to be a hell of a basketball team. Meaning I need diversity. I need the point guard. I need the three-point shooter. I need the big man inside. When I've been good offensively, we had that diversity in the receiving core. You don't see that in Green Bay. Typically you do, and it's a homegrown group that thinks the same way, and Aaron Rodgers grooms, from birth, so to speak. They don't have that diversity. They don't have that go-to guy. Jordy, you say, well, how much difference does Jordy Nelson make? Well, how good is Scottie Pippen without Michael Jordan? I mean, if you don't have that anchor, it makes everybody better. And if you have it, if you don't have it, then all of a sudden everybody becomes somewhat pedestrian. And that's what I see in Green Bay. As much as Aaron Rodgers, and it's not like his abilities have tailed off, but and when you don't have that diversity in the receiving core and you don't have that push, then all of a sudden now the running lanes get cranked down and you're just not as productive. You look in Denver. Brock Osweiler, all of a sudden, I don't know how good he really is, but he can go deep where Peyton Manning couldn't. And all of a sudden now they run for 170 yards rushing in the last 2 weeks. So it's all interconnected. When I see in Green Bay, and they're 3 of 12 on third down, and they're near last in the league in third down conversion right now. I just see a lack of dynamic play at the receiver position.
And yet, if Arizona loses in St. Louis this week, or Green Bay beats Dallas at home next week, and then Arizona loses to Minnesota on a short week on Thursday Night Football, the Packers might be in a 2 seed before it's all said and done.
Yeah, God bless America. Isn't it? I mean, you got to love that. Just look at no further than the NFC East. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles are a game back at 4-7. Are you kidding me? A game back. Someone asked me the other day, well, how do you see who's going to win the NFC East? And my answer was, who cares?
Well, yeah.
9-7 and 9 and 8 and 8. That's great, but how's that going to parlay into the playoffs?
Well, and they're in New England, where talk about a tough assignment. But where do you stand on the New England health situation and how the attrition that's happening on that roster at some point going to affect wins and losses in New England, or no, in your estimation?
Oh, it's got to. At some point, and we all have unbelievable faith in Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but at some point, you got to be able to field a team. And how brilliant is Tom Brady at home? This is going to test them. The good thing for them is they've got enough of a cushion. It looks like they're going to kind of get healthy. And if it's not until the playoffs, that's fine, too. They can step back in. I tell you what I'm interested in watching in this game.
Sure.
Is Bill Belichick has not faced Chip Kelly yet. I'm going to be fast, and these guys were kind of compadres. Chip Kelly is the guy that Bill Belichick has reached out to about the high tempo and all that when he was at Oregon. I'm going to be fascinated to see what Bill Belichick, the defensive mastermind, does schematically to not that this is a dynamic offense by any stretch of the imagination, but they're still running the plays that Chip Kelly wants to run. That's part of the problem. Chip Kelly won't keep doing what it's not like he won't do it. It's just that's all we can do. So I'm going to continue to do the same things because this is my structure, even though I don't have the players to run it. I'm going to be fascinated to see what Bill Belichick does schematically to break down that offense.
Coach, I appreciate it. Thank you. We'll chat with you next Friday.
All right, man.
Look forward to it. That's Coach Billick at Coach Billick on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.